Emissions Gap Report 2022. The report titled, Emissions Gap Report 2022 The Closing Window, was released recently by the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP. What is Emissions Gap Report? Emission gap reports assess the gap between countries' pledges on emission reduction and the reduction required to bring down the global temperature increase below 2 degrees Celsius by the year 2100. It analyzes the difference between where the GHG emissions are predicted to be in 2030 and where they should be to prevent catastrophic consequences of climate change. The report is seen as a scientifically authoritative source for information on the implementation of the Paris Agreement. It has been published by UNEP Copenhagen Climate Center, UNEP CCC, since the year 2011. The 2022 edition, 13th edition, of this report was released recently. This report was released a day after the UNFCCC warned in its annual assessment that the world is on track for around 2.5 degrees Celsius warming by the end of this century. What are the key findings of the Emissions Gap Report 2022? The report warned that the world is falling short of achieving the goals set under the 2015 Paris Agreement and recommended an urgent system-wide transformation and GHG emission reduction by unprecedented levels in the next 8 years. The current policies will lead to a 2.8 degrees Celsius temperature rise by 2100. Implementation of current climate pledges will only reduce this, to a 2.4 to 2.6 degrees Celsius temperature rise by the end of this century. GHG emissions must be reduced by 45% by 2030 to achieve the Paris Agreement goals.